Hey, how y'all doing? So I'm going to give you 3 tips on how to start feeling more optimistic about the future. So let's say that you've got something on your mind, or maybe you're struggling with something, maybe it's something quite serious like some kind of loss or even grief, and you can't seem to feel optimistic and move forward, and maybe you've got looping thoughts going on in your head. And you're kind of stuck there, right? Because if you've ever been in a situation where you've got something really troubling, and something like grief or loss or something like this, it can really affect you, and it can almost like knock you off your daily routine, affect you at work, affect your performance, affect everything, even how you sleep, which would just have so many negative effects on your life in terms of your performance. You can struggle with eating, all that kind of thing. So it can really affect us. And whilst we can all become more emotionally resilient and, very strong emotionally, which I think is really good, there are times in our lives when certain things happen that they just, they're too strong, and we can become overwhelmed by grief, whether that's the loss of a loved one, maybe there's been a big circumstance change in your life, maybe you've lost some kind of financial security or a business, or lost a job or something like this. There are many instances. So how do you start feeling more optimistic again about the future? Let's say that you're in this position and you just cannot see forward, right? So I've got 3 tips for you, right? Tip number 1. The first tip is to think about that moment, right? And maybe reserve an evening time, and just really allow those thoughts to come up, right? Because a lot of the time when we're dealing with something really traumatic or, quite stressful, you might think that burying it and hiding it and trying not to think about it will help you. Well, it won't, because all you're doing there is prolonging the agony. You've got to go through almost like the stages of grief to process it. So the best thing to do is to face it head on, right? So take one evening and allow all them negative thoughts to come up, or maybe there might be some regret or grief or loss or something like that. Allow those thoughts to come up and just feel them, right? Go head on into it, right? Even have a good cry, right? And, it's like, I always wonder about crying. Can you cry in front of people? Well, yes, you can. But I'm a guy, right? I don't want to be seen to be crying. And it's not because, you've got to be alpha and not weak and all that kind of thing. I think all that's bullshit, right? The reason why you don't want to cry in public is because I think that you do want good emotional self-control in front of other people, because it shows confidence and strength and all that kind of thing. But when you're in private, have that evening where you really allow the thoughts to come up and have a good cry about it, right? Whatever, let the emotions come up and really spend some time thinking about it. Really, don't try and fight it. Let all them thoughts and emotions come up, and then go to sleep. And in the morning, you'll likely wake up and feel fantastic, because you allowed yourself the time to really feel it. And you might have to do this a few nights to allow it to go, but you will feel fantastic in the morning when you wake up. So that's the first tip. Second tip, right, is to understand that nothing happens overnight, right? Particularly if you've had a hand in anything. Let's say you got a bit of regret, you've misbehaved and something's happened, and you're not quite, you may be upset with how you behaved in your own performance. Maybe have some regrets about how you treated someone, maybe something like this, right? Nothing's happened overnight. So whatever happened has probably been happening for some time, right? Slowly, bit by bit, as a result of it's basically the accumulation of all your past actions, or all the past actions, even if you've not done anything, and maybe you've just allowed things to happen. the fact that you've allowed it to happen over a long period of time. When something happens, it's not happened overnight. That is the accumulation of all your past actions, and it's just at that moment coming into your selective focus. So we have this reticular activation system, which allows us to have this selective focus. So, when something just happens out of the blue, has it really happened out of the blue? Could you have spotted the signs all the way along, maybe for 6 months, 12 months? Yes, you probably could. Your selective focus was not on it. You was kind of hiding it out of your selective focus, and you were focused on what you want. Because our thoughts, we can almost like manifest our own reality, so we can hide things. So understand that nothing happens overnight. And if you look back, you'll probably notice maybe a few key moments in the past that started to accumulate and led to the current action, right? So I think you need to understand that as tip number 2. And then it allows you to sort of process it more. Tip number 3 is, once you've had a good cry, tip number 1, you've understood that it didn't happen overnight in tip number 2, and you've processed through it, what happened, when it started to happen. Once you got them out of the way, tip number 3 is to start making some changes, right? So once you have that understanding, you've allowed the grief to come up, you've really felt your way through it. The next step is to start creating some goals and start working towards changing. And this is a great thing. Once you get this growth mindset, you can literally just start behaving differently or start making some changes today. It's never too late to make a change, and you can always do that. And what I always do is I'll create a goal and I'll start working towards it bit by bit, continuous improvement each day. And I choose to work on 3 things a day, 3 small things a day that work towards my goals. So you overcome this with changes. So you create goals about those changes and you start working to them every day, a little bit, 3 small things a day. You don't have to spend a lot of time on them. And that continuous improvement is really powerful because you get like a compound effect. So this is a great thing about making a change. So if you think about it, you've processed that grief, you've understood what happened, that it didn't happen overnight, and you've learned from it, and you're now going to make some changes. And just by working on it, 3 small things a day, you get a compound effect. And over time, you start setting new goals, you start achieving new goals, you feel a lot better, right? Because you've understood what went wrong in the past, and you can now look forward to a new future. And once you start working towards those goals with those small incremental changes each day, that compound effect starts to build, and it's like reinforcing a habit. Every time you do something that reinforces a good habit, you strengthen it. You strengthen the neural connections of that habit, and it makes it even stronger. And the compound effect starts delivering results. That also boosts your confidence, your self-worth, your self-esteem. This is how you start being very, very optimistic towards the future, because you're now setting a new path and you're working towards it. And it's very, very powerful. Think about it, that growth mindset, right? If you're on a new trajectory, a new path, you've set your goals and you're working towards it, even if you're in a very low place, right? The fact that you're working towards it is all that matters, not what you've achieved, because that will come. What matters is that you're slowly working towards it, right? And just being on that path is enough, because it doesn't matter where you are today, because tomorrow you'll be better, and the day after that you'll be even better. And that is what a growth mindset is about. It's about accepting where you are, accepting what went wrong, but also having that, it's almost like a buzz of being on that journey to a new future. It may take a long time to get there, but just being on that journey is enough. And that is living with intent, living the life that you want in your terms, and making those changes. It's very powerful. All you have to do is start building the habit of change each day, bit by bit. And that, once you get there, that is optimism. That is being optimistic about the future, because you're creating the new future. It's very powerful. Why don't you give it a go? Put some comments down below if you're not optimistic about the future, if you're struggling with something, whatever that might be. You don't have to put all the details, obviously, very private. It may be a sensitive issue. But if you've been struggling and you're looking for how to feel optimistic about the future, just share some of your experiences. But I'll tell you now, almost guarantee you, if you do those 3 tips, let the emotions out, have a good cry in an evening, wake up feeling fantastic, understand that nothing happened overnight, that it's probably been happening for a long time, and learn from that experience, and then create some goals and start working towards them. Some goals for change. Start working towards them each day. If you do those 3 things, I guarantee you'll be optimistic about the future. All right? Hope you like that one. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you all next time.